Welcome all. I'm going to wait just a few moments as everyone is getting admitted. Welcome, welcome. All right. Welcome all and thank you for joining us on this beautiful Friday afternoon. My name is Erin Lurie and I am the head of adult audiences at Hillwood Estate Museum and Gardens. My pronouns are she, her. Thank you all for being with us, and I'm so delighted that we can gather with friends near and far virtually. I hope that those of you in the DC area or planning a trip to come see us soon will come and visit Hillwood's beautiful new exhibition, The Luxury of Clay, Porcelain Past and Present. That exhibition is actually the inspiration for next month's floral design workshop, and I will drop the information about that in the chat in just a few moments. I want to share a couple of quick notes about today's class before I pass the reins over to Ami Wilber, who is Hillwood's floral and event decor designer. Ami is going to go step by step and stop along the way for questions as we go. Please submit your questions using the chat. That is the best way for me to make sure I get those all ganged up and don't have anything get lost in the shuffle. I'll do my best to pronounce names as I'm doing that, but please forgive me if I miss something. After the demonstration, we will invite our friends near and far who are working along with us to turn on their cameras and stay for a little show and tell, which is always one of my favorite parts of these programs. Anyone who is interested will feature. If you are feeling shy and don't want to work on camera either as we go or at the end, that is just fine, and we are so glad you are with us. Now it's my pleasure to turn you over to Ami. Take it away, Ami.
Great, thank you, Erin, and welcome everyone, and happy spring. It is a really lovely time in DC, and one way that we always celebrate spring in DC is with the cherry blossoms. So today I wanted to do something that celebrated the start of spring and also what's happening in DC, which is the cherry blossoms. There's still a lot that are in bloom. They're starting to go past a little bit of peak now, but you can still find cherry blossoms at the farmer's market and also at a lot of different floral markets and in the grocery store as well. So that's what we're going to focus on today. And for that, I really wanted to choose blooms that were sort of the pinnacle of spring. So again, like I said, we have cherry blossoms. They come in all different sizes, varieties, and things like that. I have ones today that are relatively delicate and small in nature, which I really like. I don't know exactly what kind of cherry blossom it is, just that it's a cherry blossom. And then we have daffodils, which are always a crowd favorite. We have some hyacinth, and then of course the tulips. And the tulips are something that are starting to come into bloom at Hillwood. So again, if you are in the DC area, it would be wonderful to be able to come and check it out. I am just going to ask Erin if you can switch the screen real quick.
Oh, yeah, let me make sure that everybody sees you nice and large.
We are all set now. So the container that I have for us today is sort of a taller vase container. It's about 8 inches in height. And I thought this would be kind of fun to sort of counterbalance the sort of longer, larger branches. So that's what we have for today. I'm going to start off by using chicken wire, which I've already cut down to size. And I'm going to just scrunch this all up. Put it into the container. This container I found when I was doing the prep for this workshop is a little bit tricky to tape. So I am only going to, the surface of it doesn't like to apparently adhere with the tape. So I'm using just a clear floral tape, and I'm just going to be taping one side because again, it doesn't really like to hold onto the container, but I found that if I started my tape where the tape started, it kind of holds a little bit, but again, not very cooperative. And the reason that we use chicken wire at Hillwood is that we no longer use floral foam. It's better for the environment, and it also helps to keep your blooms lasting longer because they're sitting directly in water. So as you can see, I've just taped up one side of my container today. My chicken wire's stuck in there nicely. And one thing, you can't see it because it's sort of below camera level, but I like to use a Lazy Susan. And today it's going to be especially helpful because the arrangement that we're going to do is a 360 arrangement. So you can kind of see, I'm just going to scoot this back a little bit so you can see the top of the container. But I like to use a Lazy Susan because it really helps you to not have to jostle around with your container when you're working, and it gives you a good sort of perspective and makes it just a little bit easier to arrange with, especially when doing an all-sided arrangement. I'm going to just put some regular old tap water into my container. I always prep my flowers when I first get them, either in from the wholesale or from the cutting garden, with a solution that's a hydrating solution. But then when I go to actually put water into the container, it's just regular old tap water. Again, if you have one of those little floral packs, you're always welcome to use that as well. We don't typically use that because we don't want anything that goes into the mansion to have anything that has a bit of a sticky residue to it. So after I have got my container all set and prepped, I'm going to go in and I'm going to start by greening up my container. And like I said, this is going to be a 360 arrangement. So I want to start from the middle and I'm going to kind of work out along the edges. The greens that I have for today, it's a variegated pittosporum. And I thought that this would kind of look nice because it has a little bit of the white in it. So it gives it a little bit more of a springy feel. I have just regular old white floral shears, but I also have some pruning shears as well, which I use when I'm doing the cutting of the cherry blossoms. But again, everything's going to be cut at a nice sharp 45-degree angle. And when I first start to arrange, one thing that you can kind of think of if you're not good at eyeballing how short or long you should keep your stems is that you can look at your container and know where the bottom of the container is, and that's going to be about how long you want your stem. One thing that's really important is to always try and make sure that your stems are submerged into as much water as possible. So again, I'm going to cut this just a little bit shorter because I don't think it needs to go all the way to the bottom. And I'm going to start from the side here because I want to sort of get the feel of it first and then kind of go around that way. Again, I'm doing a nice sharp 45-degree angle. Put this in here, and I can feel that this is now hitting the bottom, which is always a good thing to do. You want to keep your arrangement about 1.5 times the size of the container. So again, my container is about, I would say, 8 inches. So you're thinking 14-ish inches, which would be at about up here, which will be your highest point. Some of the other things that I like to do is when I am using any kind of greenery, I always clear all the leaves off of the stem so I have a nice clean stem going into my container. And I did that a little bit earlier today, so I knew that it would be kind of prepped and ready to go. And I'm going to put this gal right into the middle. And again, because this is going to be a 360 arrangement, I want to make sure that the back is also going to have stuff as well. And I like to go in and I like to green about, I would say 70% of the way. And that way it also takes up some room in your container because the chicken wire tends to have a little bit larger openings. So when you put in more greenery, it also helps as a base to kind of let your flowers then sit onto something instead of wobbling around. And again, what I'm doing is I'm just taking off all of the bottom foliage so I have a nice clean stem.
And Amy, we've gotten a couple of questions. Rita asked if you could share a little bit more about what type of floral tape you use and where you normally find that.
So this is the Oasis brand. I don't know if you can, I don't think you can see it, but Oasis, it's called Oasis, which is the trademark floral products. I get it off of my floral wholesaler, but you can find this clear tape in particular at Potomac Floral if you're in the DC area. But then you can always just find floral tape online. I'm sure that Amazon has it, or you can go to any kind of craft supply store. They might not have the clear floral tape, but they'll have like the other regular green floral tape. I particularly like the clear just because you don't end up seeing it on your container at all.
I love that. And just to address a couple questions that just came in through the chat, that tape again is going on to help secure the chicken wire inside the container. And how are you inserting stems? Are those going in or outside of that chicken wire?
They're all going into the chicken wire. So the chicken wire is acting as a base or kind of a support system for any of your stems. And what that does is it kind of just keeps it in place.
Terrific. Thank you, Amy. We also have one last question right now. You mentioned that when you are processing flowers, you use a hydrating solution before they get put into a vase with just plain water. And Rita asked if you could share a little bit more about what that hydrating solution is.
I have no idea what it is. I imagine that it's usually when we make our own, I don't do this, but if you make your own, it's usually sugar, a little bit of bleach and just water. The sugar acts as a nutrient to help, kind of liven up the flowers, and the bleach acts as a derivative to not create any kind of like gross sort of like mold or fungus or anything that would grow in the water. So
that's kind of like the packet that you get when you buy flowers at the grocery store, in case you wondered where I get my flowers.
So I'm assuming that it's some formula that is similar to that, but because it's a lot of these things are sort of trade protected, so it just says hydrating solution, or whatever it is that, or floral life or something like that. But that's typically what it breaks down to. I'm sure that there are other things in those products that.
As with anything, I'm sure the internet holds multitudes. Thank you, Amy.
Of course. So I'm almost done with my greening. As you can see, I'm again just trying to make it so that all sides are looking good. And then I'm gonna leave some of my pittosporum for later in case I need to fill anything in. But I'm looking at this and I'm gonna just add in a little bit more right here. And also what the greenery is doing is it's hiding the mechanics of the chicken wire as well. And you can see from what I've started that I'm making this slightly asymmetrical. And even though it's going to be all sided, it can still be asymmetrical. It doesn't have to be perfectly symmetrical. Okay, so we're going to move on to our next item that we're going to use in our arrangement today. And I'm going to start with the cherry blossoms. Even though these are very sort of delicate and fragile, I'm going to just use the cherry blossom stems as a way to give a marker to how high and how tall, again, I want my arrangement to be. For the most part, I'm going to stay within the parameters of my greening, and I'm going to let the cherry blossoms be up a lot higher to kind of give a little bit of space and a little bit of air, and just to have it so it's being showcased and not getting drowned out by any of the other flowers. So again, I'm going to make sure that I keep my stems as clean as possible. And I really love this one. It's really delicate, you can see, and it has like a nice sort of fan shape. It sort of mimics this fan shape that's here. So I'm going to use that. I'm going to use my pruners just because I have them. If you don't have them, you can also just use your regular shears. And I'm going to put this in the same spot as where the greenery that was doing this thing as well. So I'm just going to use that and kind of use this as my guide, that I'm really going to try and not keep anything up higher than this area. So I'm just going to do one, and then I'm going to do another one over here. Again, because this is a 360 arrangement, I really want it to be a little bit of volume in the back, obviously, as well. I'm going to take this piece, and you can see that there's this sort of V-ing branch here, and that's going to be a little bit difficult to try and design with. So I'm going to snip that off, and now I've got a relatively clean, easy stem to work with. Again, I'm always recutting all of my stems. And I'm going to stick that in that way. So you can kind of see that there's a little bit of interest to the front and to the back, because we're trying to have this be a nice all-sided arrangement. I'm going to hold on to these. I'm going to just put these aside for now. And I'm going to go in with my next bloom that I want to use. But before I do that, I'm going to stop and see if there are any questions about what I've done so far. And I'll just pull this back a little bit so you can kind of see what's happening there.
Nothing yet in the chat. I'm sure folks may be typing away, so I'll interrupt you when we do have questions. Thanks, Amy.
So the next thing that I'm going to go in with are my hyacinth. And you can see, if you look closely at the hyacinth, that it's not in full bloom yet, that it's still relatively tight. And these are going to open up and be a little, fuller and a little bit thicker, which are going to be absolutely lovely. So I'm going to use these next because I want to also give them space so that when they do open up fully, that it's not going to be sort of jam-packed and crowded in. So I'm going to go in, I have 5 stems of these, and I'm going to do a little triangular pattern, but it's going to be a triangular pattern that goes all the way around to the back as well. I'm going to keep these a little bit closer to the base of the arrangement instead of having them come up high. And I like the way it's sort of naturally leaning this way. So I'm going to use that. And again, like I said, this is going to open up a little bit more. So I actually want to move it down just a little bit more. So it's a little bit closer to the base, like this. And when I talk about using odd numbers, I like to do that so that I can, again, take these blooms and make a kind of triangle pattern with them. So then my last bloom on this side is going to go down here. So again, you can kind of see this triangular pattern. So how I'm going to do that from the back is think, okay, this is 1, 2, and then I'm still going to think of it as being a triangle. So I'm going to put my other one here. So it's a very large triangle, but again, I'm going 1, 2, and I'm thinking 3 for this other one. I'm actually going to move just a little bit. So I've just rearranged this just a little bit. And then I'm going to put my last one I think I'll put her up here. So you can kind of see from the back, I don't know if you can tell, but I've got 1, 2, and here's that third one that I've made that little triangle off of. I'm still looking at the front here. I'm not 100% satisfied with how these are. I'm actually going to move this one just a little bit lower, like that. So I've moved it just a little bit lower. And then I'm going to take this one and move it in just a little bit closer. Like that. Yeah. So I like the look of that. So it's more of a wider set triangle.
I love that, Amy. It's always fun to see you fiddle in process.
So, the other thing I always like to mention is that when you're doing this at home, do it so that you're doing it facing yourself and not away. It's a little bit difficult trying to do it away from yourself. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go in with my tulips. And I know we've talked about tulips in other workshops before, but if this is your first time working with tulips, you should know that your tulips are going to continually grow and they're going to try and face in the direction of the light. So the way you have your tulips today is most likely not going to be how they are tomorrow. A lot of times they've got this beautiful sort of bend or curve to them. And then when you come in the next day, you'll notice they're all standing super tall and super straight up because they're trying to find the light. But so for today, we're going to use them the way they are, sort of bending and folding. And then who knows, we'll see what happens tomorrow. And again, I want these to really, have this nice sort of arching feel to them. So again, I'm not going to try and, make the tulip go the direction it doesn't want to go in. So I know that this gal is leaning this way, so I'm going to use that to my advantage and be able to use it so that she's still leaning this way and has a little bit of drama to her. And with the tulips, I actually have 10 stems, so I can do my odd numbers on both sides. So I'm going to go from the front of the arrangement to the back of the arrangement so that I know that I have enough for all sides. And again, this is feeling a little bit flat to me. So I'm going to let this one really kind of come out and give it a little bit of drama coming out to the front. And what this will do, if you're looking at it from the side, is that it gives it a little bit more volume out this way instead of just being super flat going this way. And this one I'm actually going to rework as well. That. And then I'm looking at these, and this one is kind of closed a little bit more. So I'm going to have that, since it's a smaller head, be something that's up a little bit. And I love the way it's just kind of curving forward, which you can see on that side profile. And again, this one is a little bit more open, so I'm going to use this a little bit closer into the arrangement.
And Amy, we just got a question from Nancy about what type of lovely tulips we are using this month.
These are a double bloom tulip. So if you were to go into your flower shop or wherever, you can ask for a double bloom tulip, and that's what this is, instead of the typical sort of single bloom tulip. And again, I'm still trying to be relatively mindful of my hyacinths so that they have their own space to open up. I like the way that is. And so again, I'm doing that same sort of triangulating pattern within my tulips as well. And if you're happy with the way it looks today, I highly recommend taking a picture of it because, again, like I said, tomorrow it'll probably be very different. There we go. So it's really just filling in and giving this kind of angles and shapes. And then my last gal, well, this is fun. It's a double tulip. So that'll be kind of fun. And I'm gonna just turn my arrangement around to see where it is that it's feeling a little bit flat. And I feel like it's not actually too flat. I feel like I've got a lot going on. So I'm gonna take this last one. And because I really like the way the leaf is also curling with it, I'm going to put that out this way up here. So I really like how the leaf is also doing its own little thing right there. Does anyone have any questions at this point? And right now what I've done is I've gone in monochromatically. So I just have been using the pink hyacinth and the pink tulips and obviously the pink cherry blossoms. When I was thinking about creating an arrangement for this, I also wanted to have something that was obviously going to give it some pop or a little bit of color. And that's why we're using these beautiful yellow daffodils. And I'm going to go in with my daffodils as my next element before I finish off with the cherry blossoms. But if there are any questions right now, I can certainly see if I can answer them. Otherwise, we're going to go in and start filling in with our daffodils.
I think we can march forth.
Excellent. So the one thing about daffodils, I always like to sort of talk about this, is that they tend to produce a bit of a sap or a serum. When you cut them, you'll notice that there's this sort of gooey essence that comes out of it. And it can be toxic to other flowers. So what I always do is I cut my daffodils and then I let them sit off by themselves in their own bucket for 24 hours. And then I go ahead and fill them in with my other flowers. So at that point, all of the sap is sort of like gotten itself out. It's in its own dirtied water. And then when I go in to use it in my arrangement, I don't actually cut the stem. I always just leave it as is and then sort of hope for the best. But I haven't really found that much issue with mixing daffodils with my other flowers. I've experimented with it in several arrangements and it seems to be okay. I've even done what I said I don't do, and I've cut the stem and I've put them into the arrangement. And again, I haven't really noticed that much difference in terms of the flowers lasting longer or not. So, you know, is it true? Is it not true? I don't know, but you can, it's always better to err on the safe side. So that's why for anyone who did any of the pickup today, I had cut the daffodils on Wednesday and I left them in their own buckets, and then I just plopped them into the buckets of the flowers today without cutting the stems. So hopefully you guys will be okay with the daffodils. My daffodils are a little bit long, so I might end up cutting some of them, just FYI. But again, like I said, I've experimented and I haven't really found that much issue with the daffodils. So I really wanted one to be up a little bit high to really bring the focus of your attention up so that you also notice that these lovely dainty little cherry blossoms are there. And again, these are going to open up a little bit as well. Some of them are opening now, but some of them will open up even further. And look what I'm going to do. I'm going to cut this. Yeah, so you can see there's like a little bit of this gooey residue coming out of it. So something else you can do is then just sort of wash it in the water and then put it into your arrangement. So I've got these, I have this nice tall one here. I have a little bit of a shorter one here. And you can see some of them, the heads are facing up, some of them are pointing out. I like the way this one is pointing out, so I'm going to use that over here. So this one's going to be a little bit too long as well, so I'm going to cut this. I'm going to rinse it in my water right here. And put it in. So I like the way that this is facing sort of out and doing our own thing. So I just have a plain bucket of water right here. So that was what I was doing when I was cutting them. So I cut the stem and then I was just swishing it around in this water and hoping for the best. So I just put her there. And I'm just gently opening up the petals a little bit so I can get a sense of what's happening. Oops. I just smushied the stem, so I'm going to cut this even shorter. And I'm going to put this down towards the bottom here so that no bloom goes wasted. So even though it's really short, it still works down there. I'm going to leave this one kind of closed and let that sit up here. Like that. And you can see that the yellow really does add a pop of color and brightness to this arrangement. I'm gonna shimmy that one over here a little bit. So. I still have 4 daffodils left, so I'm going to use all of them up today, just to really make this feel super full. But I'm going to keep this one a little bit close and short to the other one that's over here, because I think that'll be kind of fun. So I have these 2 gals that are kind of close together, and I'm just looking at my arrangement And I know that I want a pop of color right here. So I'm going to put another one there. The other thing that's nice about the chicken wire is you can kind of like see where it's going. I can tell that this is not really going in so much. So I'm going to take a little look up top. There we go. Find a spot to slide that in right there. And again, I still have 2 more left. I'm missing color right here, as you can see. So I'm going to put my second to last daffodil there. And again, I'm just kind of lifting up my pittosporum so I can actually see where this is going in the container. Just adjust that slightly. So now I have that little pop of color right there. And then my last daffodil. Where shall I put this? And again, I'm looking like right here. There's a little bit of an empty spot. But I kind of like the way the pittosporum, I don't know if you can see, is sort of opening up a little bit. So I might just leave that as is. I'm going to put it right down here, over here. And this will break up a little bit of that pink block of color that's happening right here. And so the other thing, I don't know if you can tell from the video or not, but I have my blooms at different depths. So I have my hyacinth a little bit in closer. I have my tulips that are coming out a little bit more. And then some of my daffodils I have sort of in closer, and then some of them out a little bit more extended. So that again, you have like a nice sort of contrast of blooms that are in, and it's creating a little bit more depth, like you can see right here. Are there any questions about what's happening now? We're good.
So far, we are good.
Well, then the last thing that I'm going to do in terms of blooms is I'm going to go in now with my cherry blossoms, and I'm going to break down some of these branches. Like I have these that I had saved from before, and I'm just going to go in and start to fill in some areas. And this is what I'm calling my wispy gesture at the end. And it's just kind of giving it just that little bit of flourish. And this one I'm going to cut into 2 spots so I can have some of them that are going in a little bit closer. The other thing that's fun about the cherry blossoms is even after the blooms fall off, it'll start to leaf a little bit. And I also love using just the leaves of different branches in arrangements as well. So it's something that you can like pull out for later, or it's something that you can, put into its own vase and have these little cherry blossom leaves in your house. And I really like what's happening here. Again, I'm going to go in and I'm going to clear off the stem. And again, you can kind of see that these all have like little buds. So those will be opening up at some point soon as well. And again, even though this is well beyond my 2.5 times the size, it's such a light and delicate bloom that it really, I think that it's okay. And that I'm also really giving this some dimension and really making it that asymmetrical style that I like so much. And then I'm going to look here and I'm going to fill this in, round it out a little bit. So again, there's stuff kind of coming out this way as well. So again, you can kind of see from all sides that there's a lot kind of going on. I think I'm just going to finish off by, this piece is really tricky, so I'm not going to use that. I'm going to just put that to the side for now. And I'm going to go in and cut down a little bit. I'm going to add that. I'm going to add it in right here. I can tell I'm getting to be almost finished because I'm having a hard time cramming more stuff into the chicken wire. Yeah. I'm going to just end with this piece here. And I like that even though I started off with sort of a front and back, it's really hard to tell now what the front or the back is because there's just so much going on. So the very last thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to look at my base and I'm going to go and try and fill in any bald spots with some of the Pittosporum that I have saved from earlier. And there's just a couple of little bald spots like right here. You can see. I'm just gonna tuck some Pittosporum in there to kind of cover up that area there. And there is a little spot back here. I'm gonna tuck that in. I think I'm going to call it a day. So I'm going to try and do a little camera stuff for you. I'm going to drop my computer down. See. And then I don't know if that's a good angle to kind of see. It's still a little bit tricky to see the whole thing. And then hold up my little backdrop. So that makes it a little bit easier.
Oh, that's great, Amy.
And then I'm going to rotate it. So you can see kind of the other side as well. I feel like that this, you can see a little bit of the angle that I was going for with the cherry branches. That it's really angular this way. So what questions do you have? Are there any questions or people
This is just terrific. I do have one question, and that is, when you're working with a tall and narrow vessel, do you have any tips on how to help get that fullness? You did a great job of getting that 3-dimension so they're not just kind of up and down in the tall, skinny container. but we've got a question about any tips to help make that transition.
So I think one of the things that you need to think about when really like whatever size vessel you do is if you think of, I knew that this was only about 5 inches in width. So I knew that I also wanted to use stems that weren't going to be super thick so that I would be able to sort of jam a lot in there. So that's one consideration to think about is the size of the stem that you're going to be using. Like I would never use birds of paradise, for example, in a container like this, just because they're such big sort of like thick stems. The other reason I also used this sort of more delicate cherry blossom was I knew that the stems were also a little bit thinner instead of the super thick branches that sometimes they come in. But you really want to start with the greening. And I think the greening is what helps to sort of guide the shape of it. So even though I saw that I was sort of greening and it was becoming a little bit flat, I knew then I would need to take the blooms and bring them out from the sort of flat structure of the greens. And that's also why I went in with the cherry blossoms at the end to kind of, again, bring out the volume, really making them sort of stick out from the arrangement a lot more.
Excellent. Thank you.
Of course.
I don't see any other questions coming in, which means I think that we are ready for my favorite portion, which is show and tell. I know we have a couple of folks who have been working along live from home. So if you are working at home and are at a point where you might have a question or you might be willing to share, please go ahead and turn your camera on. I'll use that as the indication that you are ready to go and bring you up on screen and ask you to unmute so that everybody can take a little look. Now,
well, that looks gorgeous.
I love that.
Can she see it? Maybe
Yeah,
not.
yep, we can see it. It looks beautiful.
The three of them?
Just
wait one second.
I only see one.
Okay, one sec. Sort of hard to do.
Give them all to you.
Yeah.
They look good in threes.
So what we had trouble with was some of our, when we were like pushing in the daffodils and things, it was so tight in there.
Hold on, let's move arrangements for a second.
Are we off with me?
No, we're not muted, I don't think.
There you go. You're not muted. You just weren't on the big screen. We were looking at a different one.
Okay, so our question is, some of ours, when we were putting the daffodils in, we were really we think they sort of split down there because you were really jamming them in.
Oh, from the chicken wire.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if they're slightly split, it's fine. It doesn't hurt the longevity of the bloom. But I do, it's one of those things where typically when I'm, working with it is when I am trying to sort of like look above it and kind of make sure that it's going into an opening instead of going into the actual wire. But it takes a little bit of finesse and a lot of practice. I still end up splitting some of my stems on it as well. If that happens and it's like a really major split in it, you can always just pull it out and then cut it a little bit shorter. Like I did with my one daffodil that had just kind of smushed over. I just cut it shorter to then put closer to the bottom.
Okay, great. Are you going to do in person at all or no?
That is an excellent question. What I can tell you is that so far we have virtual programs scheduled through most of the summer. and we will be working on that fall schedule soon.
Okay, thank you.
So I don't know the answer, but we'll keep you posted. We'll let you know as soon as we do.
Okay, thanks. It was really fun.
Great, thank you.
All right. Manya, you are on the big screen. Oh, and you've even got your background. You're ready.
I love it.
I couldn't find daffodils, so I used yellow tulips.
Oh no, I mean, it feels like spring. So it just depends, obviously, what's in your area as well and what you can find. But that looks beautiful.
Thank you.
I've not done this before, so I don't know whether I'm being seen or you hear me, or I'm not sure.
Susan, we see you, but I just put Julia up so that everybody can see her arrangement, and I will come
Great.
to you next.
Should I take off the video?
No, you are perfectly set.
Okay.
So I had to use a container from one of the prior classes because unfortunately I banged my container that I picked up today and I broke it.
Oh no.
Oh,
So that's not the high one that you guys use. That's a lower one.
Well, it still looks beautiful.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a good sort of like improv to then all of a sudden have to switch out the container. But again, it's the same look. It feels very springy, and it feels very, I love that it's asymmetrical still. So
Yep.
I think that you did a great job with that.
Okay, great. Now it was fun as usual.
Thank you.
Now I muted myself. Susan, you are up.
okay. I don't know if I'm using the camera right, but I'm having a little, I guess I can you see it if I put it this way?
There it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
You see that?
Fantastic.
Okay.
Yep.
I had a lot of, I went a little crazy on the greens, I think, but so then it was harder for me to get in some of the blooms. So that's how it goes.
Yeah, and
Too
again,
many-
that's one of those things that, knowing exactly the percentage of greens that you need to use versus, how much you don't need to use. I still think it's better to always sort of err on the side of using more greens than less greens. And, again, with some of especially the daffodils, their stems are a little bit tricky. So it does get some getting used to with that, but I think it looks gorgeous.
Thank you. Thank you for all your tips. I don't usually like daffodils because I thought they don't smell great, but these seem fine. I don't know. Is that true about daffodils?
I think that some of them, I mean, they're in the Narcissus family. So a lot of them do have a very strong scent. These ones, I don't think actually smell at all. So.
And the tulips, I've never seen double bloom tulips anywhere.
So I got those from the Floral wholesale. But I don't know. I think it might be one of those things that it's a bit of a specialty that you'd have to go and order through a flower shop or, go look at like a farmer's market. Sometimes they have them, but typically you don't see them in the supermarket.
They're really beautiful. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Susan.
Yeah.
Sylvia, I'm going to ask you to come on and tell us a little bit about your arrangement.
Hi, well, I made it more one-sided because it'll be against a wall. So I had a few flowers left over, but here it is, and I just love it. And the tulips especially, they're just gorgeous. And the cherry blossoms, I've never worked with those, so I'm thrilled with this. This was fun.
Yeah. And the other thing I forgot to mention is that these tulips will really open as the days pass, and they almost look like a little bit of like a peony. So like a little sort of like smaller peony. So I think you're in for a treat.
Oh, that'll be fun.
Yeah, beautiful.
All right. Anne, can you unmute yourself and show us your beautiful arrangement?
Oh, I think you're still muted.
There we are.
There we are.
Excellent.
Okay. I'm actually not Anne. My daughter Anne is teaching today, and I'm here visiting from Phoenix. So
Oh,
I'm thoroughly enjoying it, and we plan to come out to Hillwood while I'm here. Anyway, what Anne got for me, because I just came in last night. Can you see this
Oh, I love
arrangement?
that it's in a picture. I think that's fun.
Are we okay?
Yeah. It's a beautiful
Okay.
shot.
She gave me a big picture
Yeah.
to use. Actually, I don't have the cherry blossoms, but she has a tree in the yard. I should have run out there and clipped some branches. But anyway, mine are a heavier stemmed flowering tree or bush of some kind. And then I have the peony tulips. And she could not find any of the hyacinth. So I have ranunculus instead.
Excellent choice.
So anyway, it has been such fun. While she's teaching, I'm having great time, and she'll come home to a lovely arrangement.
Well, I love that it's in a picture too. That really is fun.
Yeah. Anyway, that's one side, and then it's two-sided. Here's my other. So
Gorgeous.
anyway, thank you so much.
We are getting some
Wonderful.
lovely conversation, some lovely comments in the chat, echoing the appreciation for the picture and just how wonderful everybody's arrangements have looked.
Thank you. It's been fun. Thank you.
Thank you.
Have I brought you up on screen yet today,
Yes.
Julia? Okay.
Yes.
Sorry, I just wanted to make sure I didn't forget anybody. Rita, I see you've got your camera turned on, but it looks like there is something blocking the view. If you are ready to share, please let me know. And Manya just shared that she found double tulips at Trader Joe's recently. So those of you who are on the hunt, please check them out. All right, Nancy, I think I've seen you sitting most of the time here. So no flowers today. Excellent. And here is Rita coming on. I'm going to ask you to unmute and get a look at your beautiful arrangement.
Gorgeous.
Rita, I'm not sure if you're talking at all. It looks like you are still muted.
Well, it looks beautiful. So
Mute.
There we go.
Okay. Sorry. Well, there are two here because it's Rita and Marcia. Well, and Connie. So the first one is Marcia's. Sorry.
gorgeous.
And Marcia supplemented hers, augmented it with some ranunculus
Nice.
to cover up holes. And I know you can tell with the light in here, but love it. And here's Connie's.
Gorgeous.
We can't see. Yeah, I mean, it's difficult to tell here, but we are beautiful. Marcia, we're in Marcia's home, and Marcia placed hers, this one, in her entryway. So it's,
Oh,
against something, and it is stunning.
Beautiful.
We're already brainstorming about an event, how to replicate this or something similar on our own. So thank you very much.
Something to always think about whenever you're trying to do something, like whenever you're creating your own arrangements at home, is that you always want to think about texture. I think that's a very important thing to give a little bit of intrigue. And even though we were only working with 4 different kinds of blooms, they all have a very different and unique texture. So I think, again, you can really add a lot by just thinking of in terms of texture of the flowers as well. And also the scale, like you have these really small dainty flowers, you have these, bigger blooms of these tulips that will open up, etc.
I love that. I will also put in a plug for our YouTube archive. Most of these programs are recorded and then published, posted publicly to YouTube on Hillwood's channel. So you can check those out to revisit your greatest hits and to hear Amy's tips as you're building in real time. I think that means we have gotten to everyone. Please, I'm waiting just a second so that if somebody is waiting and wants to pop on and wave frantically to catch my attention. But I want to thank all of you for spending your Friday afternoon with both Amy and me and all of us in community here via Zoom. Really appreciate the chance to connect with those of you near and far, from Phoenix to, I know Jane is joining us from far away as well. So we're so thrilled to connect with you. I hope those of you in the DC area will come see. The spring gardens are magnificent. And I hope that we will all reconnect next month on May 13th as we embrace bright colors and joyful hues inspired by our newest acquisition at Hillwood. It's a vase called Good Trouble by American ceramicist Roberto Lugo. So it's a wonderful vase. You can see that posted on our website as the inspiration for next month's arrangement. Thank you all for joining us and have a wonderful weekend.
Great, thank you.